Uh, Kyle, I'll just start with, if you would, what attracted you to Jake Seresna? We'll just run through some guys if you don't mind.
Sure. Everybody hear me okay? Kind of just
You bet.
jumped in here. All good? Yeah, I mean, we've liked him for a while. I mean, big and physical and tough. And we had decided this year to the plan originally when we started talking was when we allocate our funds, shifting more, getting back to the inside presence. Um, you know, we had some ends come up in PR expansion that we kind of liked that showed maybe these young guys have a chance to step up and play. And because of that, we've decided to spend our money on the inside. And Jake is dominant. He's 100 miles an hour. He goes, you know, plays the game the right way. Plays inside, with as much 30 that we play with JY's defense. He's very intriguing because he can line up as a 30 defensive end. He can play 40 tackle. He's very versatile, and there's just not a lot to like about his game, the way he plays the game.
And you touched on it a little bit there, but paying for a veteran like Seresna is not what you've kind of done since the pandemic. If you could just maybe expand on why you made that switch. You tended to go with young Americans there.
Yeah, that's you're 100% right. Right back from the 2019 season, we've had young interior guys, Americans, and they would generally leave for pay raises, and we'd replace them with a young guy. And um, we just thought this year we did that was a spot we targeted to we wanted to improve on the interior of the defensive line moving next year for sure. And did what did make it easier a little bit was, KJ and Jaworski came in at the end of the year, the defensive ends that came up on PR expansion and were very interesting. Deshaun Dixon. So it did make it a little bit easier. The scouts did a real nice job bringing some guys in at PR expansion to make the coaches a little bit at ease with this decision to um, to allocate the funds to the inside instead of the traditional way. But you're right, DT. It is a switch from what we've normally done.
Go,
Thank you.
Paul Friesen, followed by Taylor Allen.
Hey, Kyle.
Hi, Paul.
You seem this seems like a more aggressive approach this year. Not just Seresna, of course, but a couple others. What led to that or sparked that?
Yeah, I think what I've been saying since the end of the year, Paul, that fourth place in the West wasn't good enough. Like with the bar that's been set around here, going to the Grey Cups and winning the West those years to take a an honest look at ourselves and say we were what I went over whenever we talked in December, whenever that was, that we wasn't good enough, and to admit that we weren't good enough on the field and we needed to change, we needed to improve, and organizationally, it's a big year because you go from first place for all those years to fourth place. That the next slide is out of the playoffs, and that's not something we were prepared to think is a realistic option. So yes, let's be aggressive. Let's get back to making a splash. And it's been a few years. So, we've been quite status quo, to be honest.
Mhm.
So it certainly was a concerted effort, a organizational effort to be aggressive. Let's target the guys we want and let's get them.
You may have sort of answered my follow-up, but I'm going to ask it anyway and see if it is an answer. Fans who would say that this should have happened a year ago, because you're hosting the Grey Cup a year ago. I guess you hadn't fallen to 10-8 yet in fourth place. Is that sort of answer it?
Yeah, I guess it it is that fine line of,
Yes.
yeah, we're winning, we're going to Grey Cup, status quo, and that eventually bites you in the ass, and it did last year.
Gotcha. Thank you. I'll go to the back.
Taylor, go ahead.
Kyle, what can you tell us about the Jovan Santos Knox signing coming together? I think after kind of the first few names you guys signed, I think people kind of thought, maybe there wouldn't be any more big signings coming down the pipe, and then Jovan signs the other day. So just what can you tell us about him signing?
Yeah, well, obviously we're very familiar with him, and the coaches are comfortable with him, and through the process, that was a name that we identified as an interesting piece to come in and compete and see how things shake down over training camp. And when his name was available, we reached out to the agent, and they were excited to come back and said it just a guy that we're familiar with, that the coaches know and like and trust. And, in that linebacker group, he'll be able to come in and compete. And, we'll wait and see how things shake down after training camp.
Yeah, you kind of touched on it there, but I mean, with Kyrie and Tony Jones both signed, obviously, I mean, I don't know if there isn't really room for all three of those guys on the field, I'd imagine. So is it going to be a training camp battle between those three for those two spots?
Yeah, it feels like it, but I've had this discussion with Mike. We try to be careful not to have your week one roster set prior to training camp. Like you have an idea of where everything fits in. But to your point, there's nothing wrong with having some competition out there amongst players. And let's see who wins the jobs. And if there's an injury or something through training camp, it does have a little bit of uh, we got a little bit of a backup plan in there as well, so we can survive an injury here or there. So it's just adding a good football player that we're familiar with and not over stressing how it's all going to work. At June 2nd, when final cuts have to be made, we'll worry about that then, and lots can change between now and then.
I'll jump to the back. Thanks.
John Hodge, followed by Ed Tate.
Thanks for doing this, gentlemen. I wanted to ask Kyle, you've got three free agents right now, and Chris Treveler, Dalton Schoen, and Terrell Bonds, who are all recovering from torn ACLs. Have you fully decided to move on from any of those three, or are there some of those three who you think could eventually be brought back once they're healthy?
Yeah, I mean that's the big one, John. We'll follow up with that once we get all the medical clearance and things like that. So there's still some work needs to be done on health wise before we even discuss how they do or don't fit into the building.
Specifically on Schoen, is your understanding that he could be healthy enough to play at some point in 2026?
I don't want to speculate. I mean, I know if anyone's going to work as hard as they can to get on the field, Dalton's one of them. So if there's a remote possibility that the doctors are going to allow him to get back and he's cleared, then that's the guy that'll do it. But I'm certainly not qualified to discuss the exact timeline of his rehab.
Thanks. I'll jump to the back of the line.
Ed, go ahead.
Hey, Kyle. Maybe you could run through the other guys that we haven't talked about yet. Jarrell Broxton, Jonathan Moxey, Tim White, Tommy Neal. Could you give us a little bit on each of those guys, please?
Sure. Well, we'll start on the offensive side of the ball, where we identified the offensive line needed to be something we're going to spend on. That was the top priority, and dealing with Marty and the scouting department, that Jarrell was a guy that we had him the best offensive lineman free agent that we could get, and he's going to come in, and I really like the way our offensive group is shaping up for training camp, Ed, with competition with guys that have played. Micah Kendall, our comeback, they've played inside, outside. Stan's played. I mean, and in the bigger picture to the receivers now, with targeting Tommy Neal, he's a plays an inside guy, and the ability to play three Canadian receivers with Nick and Kevin's or Joey or however it shakes down out at the Z, and getting another slot back in there allows the offensive line from a ratio standpoint to kick the tires on three, with having an interior guy, American compete there. So that was the big one, is how do we figure out to get our best offensive line on the field next year, without having to pencil in the Canadians or Americans have to play certain spots. And having the Canadian receiver, Tommy Neal, was a key piece of that we felt that, he had the ability to play slot and, take over that Jarrett Stearns type role for us. And then if the domino effect of the thought process was, if we're going to be playing two American receivers with this thought, then they need to be 1,000-yard guys. They need to be big play guys. And Tim White, there was a familiarity with Tommy Condell. He spoke very highly of them. And we expect between him and Ontario and Nick Dembski, we've got our three big time 1,000 yard guys that need to perform like that. And then Tommy fits into the slot, as said, as the the underneath guy, the roll guy, the sneaky guy that's going to get his yards, and then let the other Canadian kids battle it out at Zed. So it was kind of it all sort of came together with the ratio and how we could piece it all together to give the offensive coaches options, I guess, with the Canadian and the Americans on the field and how we get the best group out there.
And then Moxie.
Yeah, defensively right from the get-go. I mean, there's no secret. We had some issues at corner last year, whether it be injuries, whether it be performance, just wasn't good enough. And that was certainly talking with JY at the end of the year. That was getting the interior guys signed clearly was important with Retta and Dietrich and Evan, and with Cam back having to earning getting thrown in there last year and doing quite well. That interior group was pretty set, but we really needed to improve the outside, and he was the guy that JY had put above any of the other corners at the time, that this is the guy we wanted. So aggressively went out and made a play for Jonathan to come in and play corner. And you still have to have your scouting department fill some holes, and we fully expect corners and defensive end on the defensive side of the ball need to be taken care of by the scouting department.
Maybe you're getting tired of this, but is there an update on Taylor Elgersma, and what do you think is lining up on the depth chart behind Zach?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I talked to, his agent is the Canadian guy, and then they have an American guy. So they're still trying. I mean, they're still holding out hope that there's an NFL contract. So it's clear, and there's still the UFL is figuring it out. So there is zero clarity, and I guess the longer it goes, from my standpoint, I guess the worse it feels that he'll be in Winnipeg. But I was just hoping. I guess I was hoping come February 1, if there's no futures contract, that he'd jump at the opportunity to sign a Blue Bomber contract, but that has not been the case. But they're still sorting things out, and hoping that there's some NFL interest on their behalf. And if there is, then does he get some workouts and maybe gets into a camp, I think is their ideal plan. And we had Terry and Chase last year, and it's just hard. And we're comfortable with Bryce, and we're with the young guys that are coming in, or the new guys coming in. We're cautiously optimistic with the group behind Zach that one of them's going to step up. I've said this for years. That's just so challenging. It's so challenging and you're going to see it this year with a new offensive coordinator, where Zach's going to have to take a ton of the reps with all the different personnel. So Zach's going to have to take more reps than usual with Tommy, with the new receivers, which means the second, third, fourth guys are going to be limited with how many reps they get. And then, you get 2 preseason games. So it's for these young quarterbacks, not just here around the league, is when you get your opportunity, you've got to take it and show that you can make a play. So I'm excited that 1, 2 of them step up in training camp and show the coaches that they're the guy that deserves to take the reps and be behind Zach.
Thanks, Kyle.
Derek Taylor, followed by Freezer.
Kyle, the conversations with Jarrell Broxton, when you have Stanley Bryant already, what are those conversations like with a guy who's played the left side, and Broxton pretty much his entire CFL career?
Yeah, he's comfortable with the right. He's a good dude, willing to do anything. So that's the way we see it. But he's fine with it.
These days, is there a big difference between left tackles and right tackles? We used to think of left tackle is the man. Is that still a thing?
It doesn't feel like it. I mean, Jamarcus was the lineman of the year as a right tackle. I mean, it's more just a preference, I think, from the player. But yeah, that doesn't seem as prominent in our league as the NFL, where it's that left tackle has to be, to your point, the man, and the top guy, and the right tackle is just not good enough to play left tackle. You don't see that in our league.
What does it do for Kendall Randolph, Micah Vanterpool, the addition of Broxton?
Well, I touched on that earlier. I'm excited for this training camp competition. Like we need, to the point of we weren't good enough last year, and we really I don't want us to be coming to training camp with a set depth chart saying this is the way it is. The mandate for the offensive side of the ball is going to be it's going to be a competition. I mean, Kendall's played guard, Micah's played guard. They've played tackle. We're bringing in some American centers to compete. It's about we got 3 weeks of training camp to get the best combination of five football players out there and roll with it and not just go in with the status quo because this is the way it's been. We need to be able to get back to running the ball, being more physical, dominating along the offensive line, protecting Zach, and want to be the best offensive line that in the CFL. And the way to do that starts in training camp with good competition and having the best five out there week one.
Fraser, go ahead.
Quick follow-up on Elgersma, Kyle. Did we see some quotes of him recently saying the UFL, because it's a 4-down game, seemed like a good option for him? Did I see that somewhere? You
I
heard that?
I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure, Paul. I
Not
just
sure.
deal with the agent, and as I said earlier, I don't know if I was hoping we would have already had him under contract by this point, but
Yeah.
you'd have to ask him and his crew what they think their best chance
Okay.
to get back to the NFL, which is his ultimate goal is. I'm not sure.
Okay. So they haven't told you anything about the UFL taking precedence?
No,
No. Okay.
I think
Uh,
they're still dialed in on the NFL right
yeah.
now, is my understanding.
Yeah. So you land the D lineman you really wanted, your top O lineman in Broxton, and Moxie, the corner that Jordan wanted. Is this one of those, was this a fist pumping back room there when you're making these moves? Almost not believing you got everything you wanted, or how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, we felt good. I mean, certainly, the day after when you start looking at your roster, I do believe we're better. We're better heading into next year. I think we've added some talent. I think um, organizationally, I think we need to show the fans, the players in the locker room, everybody that, as I've been saying all along, last year wasn't good enough. And for us
Mm.
just to stand pat or make minor moves, I don't think sends the right message of who we are as the Winnipeg Football Club. And the bar we've set is, I want to say, we're the model of the CFL. We had that run of going to Grey Cups and being aggressive and showing them that's last year was a blip, not the norm.
Right. And the guys you've lost, I'm thinking Wheatfall, Houston, Lofton, Stearns, Vaughters. Is there one or two there that you were close and were hoping and disappointed it didn't work out?
No,
Or are
I
they just all victims of the budget?
correct, Paul. I think that was as much as Stearns with the ratio that we were talking. Same with Wheatfall. We just didn't have the money, and Vaughters was an outstanding leader and a great guy, but when we decided to transition the money inside, he was kind of odd man out. So it was more, unfortunately for those guys, just once all this was executed, there just wasn't the means to bring them back.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, didn't play it down for you guys because of COVID, obviously. But Kyle, is there a story as to how you guys found Jarrell Broxton back in 2020 when you first signed him?
Yeah, that was probably a Teddy one. Ted was always big on the O line, and yeah, it was just one of those. Danny, trust me, the scouts keep a running list of the offensive linemen but it was so tough the way we were running our cap, and you had Stan and you had Jamarcus in their prime, and though like it was. There was no chance for freaking offensive linemen to stick. So, where he obviously the scouting department did a hell of a job finding him, and it was good to see it. And we, he was a bummer for a minute or two, but yeah, it was funny you mentioned that. That's a few years back, the COVID era.
When Jamarcus got that offer from Saskatchewan, obviously that was a huge offer, and of course it's worked out very well for them. They've been a completely different team since he's been there, and I'm sure that's not a huge coincidence. Did you guys, in a way, obviously you guys spoke very highly of Jamarcus and whatnot, but like in a way, did you guys almost underestimate just how big of a loss, having that standout right tackle right next to another standout left tackle in Stanley was going to be for you guys? And was this in a way kind of righting that mistake by signing Jarrell?
Yeah, I guess at the time when you go year to year in decision, no, I don't think it was us. Right, we all understood losing Jamarcus, what that was going to mean to the team. That's for sure. And you see it in free agency all the time when certain teams target a certain guy and just go, way above the. We've dealt with Kenny Lofton a couple of times where you know you you get frustrated. I get frustrated, but it is what it is. And to say it was a mistake, it's not really a you don't want to admit a mistake, but you go back and wish, yeah, would we have maybe made a couple different decisions to keep him? Then probably we would have liked to in hindsight, but it is what it is. We would like to with Kenny in hindsight too, but you just can't make all the finances work all the time.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
John Hodge.
Kyle, we've talked, and I think you've made it very clear, the team wasn't good enough in 25, and you've kind of smashed the gas pedal this year to get back to that Grey Cup. But I'm curious, why was the team, or how was the team able to afford all these free agent additions this year when maybe there wasn't enough money, for example, last year?
Yeah, I guess when you look at the money in and the out, and there's a lot of ways to play around with the cap, John. So we're going back to I'll put it this way. We're going to go back to managing the cap we did a few years ago than the way we managed the cap last year. I'll leave it at that.
Was that to say you didn't spend the cap last year, or was it just the money was allocated differently?
Correct. That's all I'll say. Money was allocated differently last year. We're going back to running the cap the way we have prior years.
Okay. One quick follow-up on the quarterback thing with Freeze. There are some veteran quarterbacks available on the free agent market. Is there any chance you bring in one of them, or are you happy with your guys right now?
Yeah, I mean, sure would like to wait on the Taylor Elgersma to figure itself out, but yeah, once that is decided one way or another, then potentially look at a guy with a little more experience than the guys we have. But it's yeah, nothing imminent that we're going to go out and sign one of these guys until Taylor's situation is sorted out.
Thank you.
We got about 6 more minutes, guys. We'll go to DT and then Freezer.
Kyle, this is more a reflective question, but some other teams who had success last year are finding free agency tough because their guys are valued. What does that ask of you as a front office? You've been through there of teams trying to pick your players away and give them salaries. What does it ask of a front office, and how hard is it to compete the year after you've won?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have dealt with it. Generally, when you're winning, you have talent. I mean, it's not a surprise, and we've dealt with that, and you saw Sask deal with it, and I've said that for years in the CFL, the 1-year contracts can be frustrating, but if you're a team that has finished outside of the playoffs and you want to add talent, then there's a system built in the CFL where you can certainly flip your roster, and if you're willing to pay for the top free agents, you can add some talent into your locker room quickly. And you saw Sask saw that, and it's just about trying to figure out, prioritize, I guess it would be, prioritize your guys. And it's no different than all of our teams. You saw early in this process the priorities guys that we signed through talking to the coaches, that this group of guys had to be back, and we can't let them go to free agency. And if we have to spend a few extra $1,000s in December to secure the rights of these guys, then do it, and let's fill in the gaps later.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, I put the hand on there. I don't remember who it was. Freezer?
Yeah, it was me. Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
At the risk of poking a bit here, Kyle, and I don't want to, but we're trying to, I mean, I got to write this, or we got to describe this for the fans to make them understand. So when you say you're going back to the way you used to manage the cap, can you put any kind of more meat on that bone so we know what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think last year. I think last year, Paul, there was too many veteran guys in the building that weren't playing each week, that were being paid. How
Okay.
about that?
That helps explain it. Yes. Okay.
So
What led to the change then last year? I'm saying, like, was it just because you don't want to, you're trying to appease veteran guys, or?
yeah, I think just the way the roster was built and
Mm.
having some veteran guys that, got nicked up and things
Yeah.
weird and
Okay.
yeah, you know.
Okay. A couple quick guys. Shane Gauthier. Have we said goodbye to him for good?
Yeah, Mike spoke to him. Shane had a hell of a career, but we're Mike's let Shane know that we won't be offering him a contract this year.
Okay. And Dylan Mitchell's remaining free. How big a factor was his incident down south?
No, I think we were probably going to be prepared to move on prior to that and just wish
Okay.
him, hope that Dylan gets help and that he's doing okay.